Good afternoon, everyone. This is Queenie Clem with Queenie's Book Talk and Reviews, and I am your literary ambassador. And today I have Jessica Starks on my channel today. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Fine. Okay, tell us about yourself.
Well, I'm from Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the youngest of four, and I'm an author. I'm an entrepreneur. I currently have two businesses, and I'm hoping to expand into more. And I just really enjoy being creative, and I love to write.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
All right. Okay, tell us about your book.
So my book is called The Lynching Calendar, and basically it's the story of five fictional lynchings that happened all over the United States.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so in each story, you'll hear from about three or four different characters who were somewhat involved in the situation. So that way you can kind of get a more well-rounded view of what happened. And like I said, they happened in different areas, different, the victims were different ages, different genders. So you'll kind of just get an idea of how complicated and
Mm-hmm.
traumatic lynchings were.
Mm-hmm. Oh, would you like to read a snippet of your book?
Yeah, I have typically when I do like talks or things like that, I have a main quote that I feel like really summarizes the book
Mm-hmm.
as a whole. And this particular quote comes from my first story. Um, and the character's name is Ruby, and her best friend was named CJ, and he actually was the person that was lynched. And so it's just kind of, you'll hear from her and her experience and how she dealt with his death and things like that. So the quote is: "In just a matter of hours, my innocence, along with my peace of mind, was stolen and replaced with the constant paranoia of reality returning to my doorstep asking for a place to sleep." And I feel like that quote really covers, the entire book, because that really is how it is. It's literally just a moment, just a second, change these people's lives. And a lot of times people assume it was just the victim who was affected, but they had families, they had friends, they had a whole life. And, because of that sequence of events, everything was changed. So I think it really covers the entirety of the book.
And what genre is this?
It's historical fiction.
It is historical fiction.
Mhm.
Um, what made you want to become an author?
Um, I've always wanted to be one, even as a little girl.
Mm-hmm.
I've always had a love of writing. With this particular book, I'm big into genealogy. I've been doing it for 15 years now. And so learning about my family and their stories kind of inspired me to write this book.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, writing has been in, I was born loving to write. I've always wanted to be an author. So I'm really excited that I was finally able to do this.
Okay. What inspired you to write this book?
Well, like I said, doing genealogy, I was able to learn about different stories and things that my ancestors and my relatives went through. And one particular story kind of popped out to me of like a distant relative of mine named LQ Ivy. And he was actually lynched here in Mississippi. Um, and he was only 17 years old. And at the time, I was a senior in high school when I learned about it. So, I'm thinking, okay, he's around my age
Mm-hmm.
and his life is ending. And so it just really made me wonder, what was going through his head at the time, or what was his family going through? How did they feel? And so that's kind of what inspired me to write the story. And it inspired me to write the CJ story, which is the first story in the book. But after that, it kind of made me think, okay, what about other victims, or what about, other situations? So it kind of inspired me to write the whole book.
Um, what did you learn when writing this book?
I learned that lynchings are very complex,
Mm-hmm.
because again, like I said, genealogy, you kind of naturally learn things about history and things like that, but they weren't always black and white, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Like around here, a lot of people just assume, okay, all lynchings happen in the South. They all happened, back in the past. It was always a black male that was lynched, and that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of stories, where women were lynched, elderly people were lynched, and it wasn't always by hanging. Lynchings can come in different forms, and so that's part of what I wanted people to learn with this book is that there isn't like a specific formula for these lynchings. They happen in different ways. They didn't, like I said, always happen in the South, and you can learn something from all of them. And honestly, lynchings are still going on today, and so that's what I hope people can learn from it too.
Where does the title come from?
Well, interestingly, I had the title before I had the whole book written. Um, but what I wanted to do with the title was, of course, the word lynching is already a word that just kind of is jarring anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of wanted to hit people first with that because I already knew it was going to be a taboo topic anyway. Um, but the calendar portion comes in because one, each story happens in a different decade. So you're kind of going through time, and then kind of with the calendar portion, just showing that, this is still a continuation because, like I said, this is still happening.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just kind of symbolic of the time and the continuation.
Okay. What do you want readers to take from this book?
I want them to kind of take a different perspective, like I said, on lynchings, because again, people have their assumptions, but that's not always what happened in these cases. And I want them to be able to get a more full view because, if you're reading a newspaper article or just some commentary on a lynching that may have happened, you get a one-sided perspective. But with this book, you get to see, maybe what the person who accused them, what did they think? Or maybe someone who was involved in the lynching, what was their mindset? Why did they think this was okay? And so I hope that it kind of gives people an understanding of what maybe those times were like, or maybe what people used to like, what their mindsets used to be, and hopefully inspire them to want to be educated so we don't have to continue talking about these things and we can move past lynching.
What has been the hardest thing about writing this book?
The hardest thing, in a way, the hardest thing about writing it was making sure that I didn't let my fear get in the way. Um, again, I'm in the South, and obviously I'm African American, so it's just there's a different kind of mindset sometimes here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, because it took me 4 years to actually publish the book, and a lot of that was just due to me being nervous about how people would take it. So I think I would say that would be the hardest part was just kind of getting my own fear out of the way and actually going through with it.
What projects are you working on right now?
I have another, it's just like a historical fiction, but it's almost like Southern Gothic literature kind of mix.
Mm-hmm.
I have that, I'm working on that, and I hope to publish that soon. And I also have a few more historical fiction projects that I'm working on. But I do definitely plan to publish more books.
Mm-hmm. Are you a reader?
I am.
And what are you currently reading?
I'm currently reading, well, I can show you because it's on my desk. I'm currently reading this book, The Deconstruction of Walter Pig. It's actually by a local author here in my hometown um, named Carl Purdon. And it's interesting because it's kind of a couple of stories within a story,
Mm-hmm.
and it connects back to this man. And it's kind of going through kind of his life and just drastic events that have made him change and have shaped the new man that he is. And so I'm really enjoying that right now. And especially with the quarantine, I'm just kind of taking my time, reading and everything.
Um, Where can readers find you and your book?
So my book is available pretty much online everywhere books are sold. So, Amazon, Target, Barnes and Noble, all of those places. And you can also order my book on my website, which is www.jdscribes.com. You can order an e-copy or you can order a signed copy there. And you can also find me on Facebook at Jessica Starks. And I'm on Instagram at JDStarks22.
Okay. What do you think makes a good story?
I think what makes a good story, I would say honesty. Um, a lot of times, I think some people think that you can just write a book and you can just pretty much pull anything out of a hat and you can make it up. Um, but I think if you have a true story that's honest and it's true to you, you
Mhm.
can find a way to make that relatable to other people and you can find a way to make that genuine. So I would say just being honest with the way that the story is, the way that the story's set, and really taking your time with it. That's what makes a good story.
Who is your favorite author?
Ooh, I have a couple favorite authors. Um, I really like Maya Angelou and Toni Morrison. They're really great authors. I also like Lolita Files. She wrote my favorite book, which is Child of God. Um,
Yes.
now, but I just like to read, and I'm pretty much open to any genre. I just love authors, and I just love to read.
All right. Before we go, would you like to add anything?
Um, well, I hope you buy my book, and if you do buy my book, I hope you enjoy it. And I hope it does inspire you to start new conversations about history, about race relations, about lynchings. And, if you're a writer, don't be afraid. Don't let your fear get in the way.
Mhm.
And yeah,
Can we see your book one more time?
yeah.
All right, the lynching calendar. All right. Thank you for coming in today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right, y'all heard it. That's Jessica Starks with the lynching calendar, and you can get it at any bookstore online. Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy reading. Bye, y'all.